Hello, this is the Enlightened Misanthrope, and this is episode number 2. I'm kind of surprised that we got this far. I'm just kidding. Anyway, this is my second episode. A little more structured than I was the last time. I'm kind of going to open this time and just talk about the name and stuff like that. I have a Twitter account, I have a Instagram account, I'm on YouTube, SoundCloud, and currently trying to get this on iTunes. It's been a process trying to find like a pod thing that allows me to upload it to iTunes. Anyway, the reason I picked Enlightened Misanthrope is because I genuinely don't like people. I don't really like people. But it allows me to be able to understand people better, I feel. That's my personal opinion. I can sit back and, not really being beholden to the things that most people are beholden to. It allows me to objectively look at things and see things for the way they are. And a lot of times, people come to me with problems and issues and stuff, and I'll be able to give them a really simple answer because I don't have the hang-ups that they do. And not just, certain kind of hang-ups, just any kind of hang-ups. I don't really have a sense of family in the traditional sense. I don't subscribe to any of these cult kind of ideas. They weren't built into me as a child. I come from a broken home, small families. My mother was an only child. My dad had he had siblings, but they all moved away. I think there's that, and there's a lot of people who have bigger families and stuff like that, and they see it as they're more indoctrinated into that, blood's thicker than water and all that stuff. I don't necessarily see it that way. I mean, to some degree I see that, but I'm not as blinded to the facts of life. If that person, whether they be related to you or not, treats you like a piece of shit, they're probably not worth your time. And a lot of people, they have a hard time understanding that. And that's just an example. So I picked Enlightened Misanthrope because I don't like people, yet I'm very, it's easy for me to solve other people's problems because of the fact that I can sit back and objectively look at human behavior, not just, individuals' behavior. It's just human behavior. It's very, very simple when you're not hung up on the things that, most kids are taught and stuff like that. So that's the reason I picked the title that I picked. I also, I think that I also picked it a little bit because I feel like I want to be better myself, and as as somebody who's genuinely not the life of the party or even at the party, I like to see I like to look at things and I try to improve upon them and stuff like that. So I hope that my podcast and the way that I look at things, and they're, like I said before, they're mostly going to be sports. After talking to some people, I'm going to venture into some more inflammatory topics. I mean, they're not inflammatory in the sense that they're, bad, but it's just something that will, it's something that causes people to get up in arms about stuff. And I'm going to venture more in that territory. So, with that all being said, I hope that gives you a little more insight into who I am and why this podcast exists. I also have email, which I will give out at the end of the podcast. And if you'd like to email me, I'd be more than willing to hear from you. And like I said at the end of the last podcast, if you're just going to email me to yell, I'm not interested. So I'm not going to respond. I'm not going to read your email or your tweet or anything else on my podcast. It's not going to be used. So save your energy, save your time. I don't care. Okay? If you want to have a discussion or you want to talk to me, or you genuinely disagree with something I have to say and you want to talk to me like a person, I'd be more than willing to hear from you. Okay, so my first topic is, as we discussed last time, I'm a Packers fan. And I like football a lot. And I was watching the Packers, the last 3-4 weeks now, and I've been thinking about Rodgers a lot. And then this thing with Eric Dickerson came up about how For those who don't know, Eric Dickerson was a really good running back in the 80s, early 90s. He's in the Hall of Fame now. And he came out recently with this Hall of Fame letter and said that all these Hall of Famers weren't going to show up to the Hall of Fame ceremony unless they got $300,000 a year and full medical benefits and all this other stuff. And then quite a few guys that were on this supposed list that supposedly signed their name said, no, and some guys that work, like Kurt Warner, who works for the NFL, was like, no, I have nothing to do with this. And the way it ties into Rodgers' contract is that Rodgers talked a lot of junk before his last contract about how players needed to get guaranteed deals, and he was comparing the value of NBA contracts versus NFL contracts, and the way that things were structured and stuff like that. And it all ties into a central theme of how big of a joke the NFL union is. I mean, it really is the most, I can't even say disorganized, because I don't think they're organized enough to be disorganized. Like, it's a butt fucking contest. I mean, Eric Dickerson's mad now as a retired player, but back when they had the strike, he crossed the fucking picket line. I mean, he crossed the fucking picket line when those guys were there going, hey man, we need better benefits for our retired players. And he's like, what the fuck do I care? I'm a football player now. I got all this money. I'll never go broke. I'm Eric Dickerson. Well, now he's Eric Dickerson, in his 50s or 60s. I'm not even sure how old he is. Probably with major medical problems, knee replacement surgeries and shit like that on his horizon. And he's like, fuck, I don't have enough money for this. I mean, he used to be on TV. He's not on TV so much anymore. Nobody really cares about Eric Dickerson. So now Eric Dickerson's like, I need $300,000 a year and full medical benefits. Well, Eric Dickerson, if you had thought about this when you were a younger man, you would have stayed on the opposite side of the fucking picket line and supported your union brothers. But he didn't, because he wasn't the retired guy, and who the fuck cares, right? Okay. And the other thing is, Rodgers, he is now... Every fan base thinks that some guy is the best player, but you cannot argue that Rodgers is arguably one of, if not the best players. I'm not saying he's the best, but if he's not the best, you're hard pressed to push me to find guys who are better, talent wise, like integral to the team wise. Like Tom Brady went down years ago. They put in Matt Castle. They still went 10-6. Drew Brees is very good. He might go down, but now they have Teddy Bridgewater, and Teddy Bridgewater is a pretty good quarterback, so who knows? They might do just as well. I don't know. But when Rodgers goes down, now the other benefit is having no backup quarterbacks, because Brett Hundley wasn't terrible, but he's not good, and Deshaun Kaiser is absolutely atrocious. He looks better, way, way better by comparison. I think, however, though, if he was a guy who couldn't get a fully guaranteed deal to the type that he wanted, who the hell could? He talked all this stuff about how he needed, about contracts and the fairness, and we have to hold the line and his players and whatever. And Kirk Cousins came to the Vikings this year, and he got a 3-year, $89 million fully guaranteed deal. Rodgers, on the other hand, is sitting over there, signed a 6-year, I don't even know how much it was, 180, or I don't remember. It was a huge number, but it was a typical NFL deal where after about the 3rd year, he's done if he sucks. I mean, that's it. They'll keep him for 3 years because the dead money's too much to eat, but after 3 years, he's fucking screwed. So why not just take $110 million or $120 million fully guaranteed for 4 years? That's $30 million a fucking year. I'm pretty sure that's the top number. I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure that would make him the highest paid any annual average guy. And if nothing else, it's fully guaranteed for 4 years. Now, because he's fully guaranteed for maybe 3, he's sure as hell not going to get to 6 if he keeps up. If he blew out his knee right now and he comes back next year and he's piss poor, because he has to have surgery in the off season, and then the rehab doesn't go well, and we have like an Andrew Luck situation with his shoulder, but it's with his knee. They're not gonna fucking keep him. They don't care. Who cares, right? I mean, he's a football player, and he signed a football player's contract, which after a certain point can be torn up, thrown away, and be disregarded like toilet paper. I mean, they're like, what? This is a contract? Who said this was a contract? Oh, you're stupid enough to believe us. Well, I'm sorry. And it makes me upset because these guys, when they have positions of power, they don't do a damn thing. But then years later, they decide that, oh, well, I need to do something now. Okay, so Rogers talked all this stuff. He talked everything about, he talked everything about how he needed to, that the NFL players need to get fully guaranteed deals, and they need to have structures closer to the basketball players and all this other stuff. He even bought a percentage of the damn Bucks, but he didn't do anything he said he was going to do. Now, you might say, well, he got hurt and he needed the security and this and that and the other thing. I don't argue that. I mean, the way I look at it is, after that first game and he got hurt, there's something to be said for that. I mean, there really is something to be said for the longer term deal. However, it's not longer term. I mean, that's the common misconception. It says 6 years. It's not 6 years. It just isn't. I mean, it's not. The other part is that, then you look at Eric Dickerson, when he's a young, vital, NFL leading rusher, and I think it was Peterson that broke his season rushing record, and it was Dickerson who set it. When that guy decides, I don't need to follow our union bylaws and bullshit, I'm just going to cross the picket line because, God damn it, I need money. Well, are you that stupid that you're not going to realize, oh shit, when I'm 60 or 50 something or whatever, fucking however old he is, you're not going to be in a good position. You're just not. And you're going to look like an idiot. And he looks like a bona fide idiot right now. I mean, there is no way in any shape that he can say, oh, well, this makes sense, because the guys that he signed, I don't remember what the number was. I think it was in like the teens or the 20s, and like half of them came out and were like, I don't know what the hell this is. I didn't sign this. I have nothing to do with this. I don't agree to this. Like they say, oh, we aren't going to show up and we'll stay home and whatever else. And everybody on all the sports platforms is like, well, they'll just make lesser chairs. Well, even if they don't, some of the guys work for the damn NFL. They're not going to lose their current jobs. They need that money. Eric Dickerson, I think he used to do sideline reporting for like the ABC Saturday night college game, because he was not, I don't remember him being in the NFL. Now, granted, I could be wrong about all of this, but I'm pretty sure it was him. He was on the sidelines for certain games. And now he doesn't do that anymore. And I think he's occasionally like a guest on like First Take kind of shows where he comes in and he blathers about stuff, and he's not very interesting. I mean, he just isn't. So he's not there all the time. And in that way, we got a guy who has really no skills to offer, but he's, now he's upset because he's getting shortchanged as a retired player, when he crossed the picket line against guys who were getting shortchanged as retired players in the damn 80s or the 90s, whenever that strike was. It's like, the NFL union is so stupid. I mean, it's so stupid. The NBA union's probably the best. I mean, they were getting like over 50% of the share for the league revenues, which, I mean, that's a damn good, cut. And then there's the baseball players union, which has literally everybody in it from, rookie ball all the way up to the majors, and they can push a little bit. Now, granted, their minor league systems kind of draconian, and there's bullshit that they're pulling with, playing guys, up to this certain date and then not giving them call-ups because, oh, we want more service time. I think if I'm in the MLB union as a player, that shit's gonna stop. I mean, that would be something that I would go after. But they like make changes like that. They actually try to do different things, whereas, the NFL union is just a joke. I mean, it's a joke. They don't do anything. They don't make the lives of the players better. They don't do anything. They took away all this practice time, and they thought that was a win. There are like medical professionals, I remember, that came out because there was a lot of like non-contact injuries and stuff that were happening shortly thereafter when they reduced their practice time. And the guys were saying the body's not conditioned to do that. They're doing these highly explosive movements, and their body's not conditioned to do it. Now, granted, it could go at any time. I mean, it's not, it's not like it had never happened if they practiced more. However, if they practice more, the body's more attuned to doing that, and it's less likely to happen. It's likely, it can happen, but it's less likely to happen the more they practice. Now, again, there comes an overtraining point too, but what they were doing was considered far too little. That's what I heard. And that was right after the last collective bargaining agreement, where they're like, yeah, we practice twice and we don't even wear pads anymore and we can't touch each other and all this other shit. It's just stupid, because you see non-contact injuries have gone up a massive amount because they're, I mean, they're going from a dead stop to as fast as possible to another dead stop and then turning around. Well, my leg would come off just thinking about that, I don't necessarily see how they can justify that. To me, it doesn't make much sense, but, I'm not in the union. I don't hate unions. You'd think I might because, as I've said before, I'm from Wisconsin, and Scott Walker was the union buster and ran around and tried to get rid of, all the unions around here. But I'm not opposed to unions. I think it's not. In some situations, it's a bad idea. In other situations, it's a really good idea. But like the NFL union, that's a good idea if they did it right. The UFC union, I don't like. They talk about unionizing the fighters. I think that's the stupidest thing on the planet. Because who are you going to get to run it? Guys who get punched in the head for a living? So you're going to get guys who are not getting punched in the head and are generally crooks, because most, like anybody who deals with boxing or fighting promotions think the promoters are crooked. So you're going to deal with guys who are like adept in screwing people out of money. Now, I'm not saying that's what they're doing, but that's the general like idea behind these, like what people talk about when they talk about promoters. And so you think you're going to get a union of guys who get punched in the head for a living, or currently getting punched in the head, or used to get punched in the head, and now they're older, and they're going to strike fair deals? Okay, so then you bring in outside people to take over the union and negotiate on your behalf. Okay, well, you have a bunch of people getting punched in the head for a living, and how are they going to check the facts? It's not like you're going to have a bunch of people who are going to sit over their shoulder and go, I don't think that's correct. I don't think this is correct. But I don't understand what they're doing. It doesn't make any sense to me. And if the UFC ever had a union, I'd just die laughing, because I don't necessarily think it would be a good idea. I think there are better things to do, and I think, there are better ways to do it. The NFL is a union that could be really strong, but they just choose the guys who have the most power, like Rodgers in this instance, or Dickerson back in the day, choose not to really stick with what they should stick with or do what they should do. And that part bothers me in that sense, because those guys have a unique power at that time, and they just choose not to exercise it. And it really bothers me, because they talk all this shit in the media, and they're like, oh, we should do this and we should do that. And then, 25 years later, Dickerson's complaining and all this other crap. And it's like, you made your choice. Shut up. Just shut the fuck up. Like, just makes me angry. I'm not as mad at Rodgers because he's my guy, but I think I lost a little bit of respect for him. I won't lie, because it's kind of hypocritical what he did. And, to talk all that junk and then take and then you got Kirk Cousins getting that kind of deal. And the Vikings do it. It just floors me. Like a state over, who isn't nearly as good as you are, and he gets the deal you should have got. Well, he got a lesser deal than what you should have gotten, but of the type that you should get it for. I don't really understand, but going from one thing that I don't completely understand as to why they did it, I'm going to talk about Bill Cosby now. And I said that this is mostly a sports podcast, but it's also about life. And as a young man, Bill Cosby was in my life. I don't really think I was old enough to remember the original Bill Cosby show, but I remember the second one. I think it was Madeline Kahn was on that show, and Dougie Doug was on that show, and it was on like Fox. Really late at night, I used to watch it. And I liked that show. I liked Bill Cosby. I watched his famous comedy special on VHS. I still have the VHS around here. Something, where he says, my brother and I, until we were like some certain age, thought our name was Jesus Christ and something else, And he was really funny. Like, I watched that thing so many times and I laugh. I still watch it and laugh, But now he's in jail. And he's going to serve at least 3 years. Now, granted, he'll probably not serve exactly 3 years, because if he has good, good behavior, he could get out earlier. I don't know that, but that's just generally how jail works. Is if you don't stab people or cause trouble while you're in there, you usually get out a little earlier than whatever your sentence time is. And I don't really know how to feel about this, because this reminds me of when Joe Paterno had all that shit come out with Penn State, and I didn't know how to feel about that either, because there's these guys in their really advanced years. I mean, Joe was in his 80s, Bill Cosby's in his 80s, and these terrible, terrible, terrible things come out about them. And I don't know how to feel about it. Because, granted, I feel bad for the women, and I felt bad for the kids and stuff like that. But, and granted, there are two different situations, because Joe Pa was like, he was kind of involved in it, in the sense like he was there, but the guy who actually did the deeds wasn't him. And Bill Cosby in this situation is the guy who's doing the deeds. And I don't really know, because I know that I had heard on Dan Levitart's podcast, they have an African-American guy who works on the show named Roy Bellamy, and he talked about the black community. They did it on their Miami Local Hour, and he talked about, like, the black community feels differently about Bill Cosby than other communities. And I remember, Bill Cosby, he talked a lot of junk about the black community. As far as I remember he used to talk about, like, not having leaders and stuff like that. And I remember there was a lot of backlash at times, and he got himself in hot water a lot with that community. But I mean, if you look at what he did when his initial TV show came out, he was a black doctor on TV with all his kids and stayed there. Now, it might be stereotypical, but that was not something you saw on TV at the time. I mean, I guess you could go back to Moving On Up. I can't remember what that show was called with Sherman Hemsley, but that was another one. And there were other ones later on, but they weren't, there wasn't a proliferation of them, and he was always, is what I thought, was a positive role model, even for me. He was a clean comic. He didn't swear all the time. He had a show about family. He had, kids say the darndest things. He did Jello pudding pop commercials, all this other stuff. He had this wholesome image, and he was like somebody you could, I mean, if I was black, I would have probably looked up to him. Maybe, I don't know. I kind of looked up to him a little bit because he was funny, and he made funny faces and stuff like that, and I like being funny, but I mean, I understand these women had this terrible, terrible thing happen to them, and and that's the part I really don't understand. Like, you're Bill Cosby. At the height of your fame, you're drugging and raping women, and I know that rape in and of itself isn't about sex. It's about power and control. But you couldn't do it any other way. You couldn't control them any other way. You had to physically, like, put something in their drink so they passed out and then woke up, either halfway through paralyzed or naked or whatever, and it's just, he had all the power in the room in that situation. And the only power they had was to say no. But I hear, stand-up comics talk about going on the road. There's women there. You can find them. It's not hard. They might not be 10s, but they're there, And I don't understand the choice he made. I really don't. And I don't understand it from the sense of who he was at the time and what he did, and who he was. He could have had countless women. He probably could have had those women had he put in a little more effort, but he didn't want to. He just wanted to drug them. But he did a lot of good things too, as a person before, and this was terrible. This was absolutely horrible, atrocious, bad, all the nasty words you can say about it. But I don't know how to feel about it, simply for the fact that he did do some good things as a younger man and even as an older man. And I'm wondering and he was funny, and he brought joy and stuff like that. And he did this horrible, terrible thing a bunch of times. And so now I'm stuck with all of the laughter I had. Like, even one of his later specials on Comedy Central I watched, I thought it was hilarious. My friend had gotten married. He talked all about marriage. I was like, this is, like, you need to watch this. This is fucking hilarious. But, I mean, I'm supposed to now just be disgusted. I mean, I am, but I don't forget that he was funny, and he was positive. He did positive things, And that's the same thing I think about Joe Paterno. He had a sexual deviant on his football staff, and ran around molesting children, and that's just as bad, if not worse. It's 1A and 1B as far as that goes. Either way you want to stack them. And what did Joe Pa know? What did Joe Pa do? What didn't he do? And all those things. But he affected the lives of a lot of young guys. I mean, a lot of his Penn State football players fucking loved the dude. They thought he was his father. I mean, look at the Penn State people afterwards. They came out in droves, wrecked stuff. They were nuts when they got rid of him. And he died shortly thereafter. And again, it's one of those things that makes me think, what he did or what he didn't do is horrible. But does that negate what they're feeling? Does that negate the people that still like him? Does that negate the feelings that I have about him as like a guy who, in Joe Pa's case, who formed men, who did that job for a really long time, did a good job for a really long time, supposedly didn't pay players. I don't know if that's the case, but that's what was said. He was interested in his graduation rates. He was interested in things that a lot of football coaches aren't always that interested in, And I don't know how to feel about it. And I guess I'm talking about it on here and out loud because I just wonder if I'm the only one who doesn't know how to feel about these things. Like, I know it's bad. What happened was bad. It was terrible. It was whatever. Whatever adjective you want to use to describe the behavior, it was not good. And those people are forever affected by that, and that's just terrible. And, you wish that kind of stuff wouldn't exist. But now that he did that, where does that leave me? And maybe that's a selfish way to look at it, and I don't deny that. But I know how I feel about what happened, and I know how I feel about what they went through. Like, I wish it didn't happen and all that stuff, and, if there was some way to fix it, that would be great. But I know that those things are long-term lasting traumas that probably affect... Well, I mean, they're willing to testify about it now and talk about it on TV and all that stuff. And if that actually happened and they're still willing to go through it, that was pretty, that shows you that stuff never goes away. And, that's kind of just stating the obvious. But for me, now, I didn't have that relationship with Bill Cosby. My relationship with Bill Cosby was all positive, and now this negative comes out. And this massive negative comes out. And I just don't know how to feel about it because I know I shouldn't like him. I know I shouldn't, I know I should condemn him and all that other shit, but because of what he did, but I still like his special. I still think he was funny. I still think he did some good things. And I don't know. I guess it's more of a statement about the human condition, where does one wrong and massive wrong deed wipe out anything good you ever did your entire life? Even if that if that person's not affected, are they supposed to be find you abhorrent for the rest of their life? I honestly don't know. And it would be nice if there was like a handbook for this kind of shit, and again, that's stating the obvious, but it would be really nice if there was something, positive figure does X, this is how you're supposed to feel, and it kind of explains it, it'd be nice. But those are one of those things that are, I think they're unknowable. And in that way, it bothers me because I like to know things and I like to understand things. And this is one of the things, that even not given the trappings of everyday human connection and stuff like that, the stuff that most people have and clouds their judgment, I still can't wrap my head around this one. And I don't know what the right thing is. The right thing is to feel, I know what the right thing is to do. You put him in jail, obviously, if he did this, so he needs to go to jail. But then how do you feel about it afterwards? Does the jailing end it? Does it make you feel better? Does it make people, does it make it okay for you to think he's all right then? Once he comes out, has he paid his penance? You could say that with O.J. Simpson too, who of course had to come out and talk about this. And that was a different case. He murdered his wife and that other guy. But, he was acquitted. But if you watch anything with OJ in it that he talks about it, that guy, as far as I'm concerned, did it. I don't see it any other way. That might put me in hot water with some people, but you watch that OJ documentary from ESPN, and you tell me you come with anything other than that guy did it, and he don't give a shit, I don't know. I guess I just wish Cosby would have made better choices and not done that shit. And, and for those women's sake more than mine, but selfishly for myself too, because I could, I wouldn't have to think about how do I go about dealing with this now. And there's never easy transitions from that kind of topic, but it was bothering me and it was on my mind most of the week, so I just had to put it out there. But we'll switch to something a little less serious and somewhat more, some fairly ridiculous. Kevin Durant, he's, for people who don't know, he was a 6'10", supposedly he's actually like 7'1" or something, but he's listed at 6'10", forward, came out of Texas, drafted number 2 after Greg Oden, who, to be honest, I thought Greg Oden was going to be amazing. Too bad he blew out his knee. I would have liked to have seen what he did, but he was originally on the Seattle Supersonics, then they were moved to Oklahoma City. He stayed there for a long time, and then he left and went to Golden State Warriors. And after he left Oklahoma City, he became a giant prick. I don't like Kevin Durant anymore. I remember Kevin Durant stories when he was in Oklahoma City, like in the beginning, there was talk about him, being with kids. Like he'd tell kids in the neighborhood, hey, if you want, just come knock on my door. You can come play video games. He carried a backpack everywhere he went. He was this quiet guy who when he said something, it meant something. And then I don't remember if this is true or not, but now that I think about it, I think he kind of started being a dick the last year in Oklahoma City. He was getting ejected all the time, flipping out, just losing it on the referees. And now he's on I don't know, he was interviewed by some guy and they were talking about, the all defensive players or defensive honors for the year. Defensive player of the year, that was it. And they won't give me anything, and nobody's got any respect for me and all. It's like bullshit. You're such a fucking whiner. Like ever since he went to Golden State, all he does is complain. They win championship after championship, and the guy sits there and goes, "Oh, nobody respects me." Oh, of course, nobody respects you. That team won a damn championship the year before you went there, and they lost to LeBron that year, and then you went there, and now they haven't lost since then. And people were excited to see you play them with Oklahoma City. Now, granted, Russell Westbrook's probably not the easiest guy to play with. And they may have had some friction in their relationship. I don't know about that. But if you go back to the team that played the Heat, they had James Harden, they had Serge Ibaka, they had Russell Westbrook, and they had Kevin Durant. And Kendrick Perkins was the center. And Thabo Sefolosha was actually the starter. And Harden came off the bench. But I mean, those 4 guys, now, Ibaka's not nearly as good as he used to be, so I don't really count him. But if you look at KD, Westbrook, and Harden on one team, that's pretty damn good. And KD and Westbrook on one team, push the Golden State Warriors. Now, you look, the Rockets are pushing Golden State with Chris Paul and James Harden and the guys that they had. Now, their roster is going through some shakeup, and I talked about Jimmy Butler last week, and now the Rockets are supposedly making a push for him. And I wouldn't get Jimmy Butler, but I will say, as a follow-up to that thing that I talked about last week, some of the stuff that I heard later was that Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns don't have the kind of work ethic that Jimmy Butler respects, and that's part of the reason that they had problems. And if that's the case, I don't know this to be true. I'd have to revise my opinion, because if these two guys are like resting on their laurels and coming in, and I think they're like 23 and 22 or 21, if they're already resting on their laurels and they aren't working very hard, I'd be pissed too. So I don't blame Jimmy Butler. I really don't. But I don't necessarily know if that's true, because I've heard there's so many things. There's pro Butler things and con Butler things, and I just think that the disruption that follows him is probably not a good idea. And if you send him to Houston with fucking Carmelo, that's just disaster waiting to happen. But that's just me. Anyway, back to Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant, like, shut up. That's just what I want him to do. I want him to shut up. I mean, I get he has a platform. He's allowed to say things. But when he's complaining about the media as much as he is, like, I know that these leagues have mandatory availability for media. I would take it away from certain guys. I'd be like, you cannot speak to the media. If you do, we will fine you. Because he's doing nothing but he's hurting the league, as far as I'm concerned, because I don't want to watch Golden State games. I'm not a huge... I do not like Draymond Green at all. I didn't like him all the way back to Michigan State. I think he's just, like... His histrionics are not my idea of fun. I don't like, you know... he kicks people in the balls constantly and then acts like he didn't do it. I used to like Kevin Durant, but his whining and his constant complaining... I didn't like Kobe Bryant for some of the same things. Like, they complain you'd swear any shot they missed, they got fouled. It's not because they missed a shot, it's because they got fouled. It's like, just shut up and go sit. Just go play defense and shut up. I don't want to hear you. Like, I'd be teeing people up if I was a ref. You'd talk to me half as much as they talk to them, I'd give them technicals. I'd never be on big games because there would be so many fucking fouls. The game would be so slow. Everybody would be like, this is fucking terrible. And I'd be like, well, tell me shut up then. You know? And Steph Curry, I like him-ish, but I just think there's a lot of push behind Steph Curry that I don't understand. And I'm not saying anything bad about it. I don't get it. Like, I just don't get it. I don't get it. He's a good player, but I don't really see this superstar stuff in him. Like, he does that Brita commercial, and I think that Brita commercial sucks. I don't think he's a pitch man. I don't think he's somebody you want pushing stuff. And other than the play, the star quality is not there. And the guy I liked was Klay Thompson, but then he talked shit about Milwaukee, which, you know, I don't really give a shit, but he should be quiet, because you know what? If he came here and they offered him max money, he'd probably take it. He'd probably take it. And he likes Golden State and all that stuff. That's great. But you don't have to shit on other places. Like, I don't like that team because they shit on stuff all the time. They're other than Steph Curry, who's getting that way a little bit, but Draymond and KD are the worst. Klay Thompson's probably third, and Curry's probably fourth. They shit on everything all the time, it seems like. Like, if they're not saying something negative about a town, a guy, something that happened to them, the media, whatever, they're not talking. They're just complaining. And it's really sad because they win a lot. Now, people can complain about you winning, but you still won what the fuck are you complaining about? You won the fucking championship. Like, there's nothing for you to complain about. If they look at you and go, oh, you're ruining the game, you go, I got 3 rings, shut the hell up. You don't have to shit on everything and have a bad... I mean, granted, if people are telling you suck and you're ruining the game, every time you're out there, granted, it's going to give you, a negative feeling towards people. I get that. Like, I'm not an idiot. I understand it. But to just be that, just shit on everybody all the time. Like, and then Draymond Green's fighting with Tristan Thompson in the club, and granted, Tristan started it because Draymond tried to smooth things over, but Draymond started that stuff. He disrespected him on national TV, and he thought he wasn't going to retaliate. I mean, these guys, they do things with impunity because I don't know who they think they are. Like, do they think they're rock stars? Do they think they're the Beatles back in the 60s? I mean, because they're not. And Kevin Durant of himself is a good player, but he's not Jordan. He's one of the better players, but he had to go to Golden State to win anything. He couldn't do it in Oklahoma City, so he left. He went to a better situation. I'm not saying he shouldn't have. Should or shouldn't have. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying him to look at us and go, well, I'm the best player that ever lived. Jordan was the best player who ever lived at his time, and he didn't go anywhere. He stayed with the Bulls. Now, granted, he went to the White Sox for 2 years, or for a year, or however long. I know it was 2 years, because I think he was out 2 years, and then the Rockets won both times. But, he didn't come back and go to the Rockets. He didn't come back and go to the Celtics or the Magic or whoever, the Pistons, whoever was challenging with a better team. He went back to the Bulls. Now, granted, they has contractual rights, but still, he could have demanded a trade and gotten the hell out of there and all that other stuff. He stayed with the Bulls most of his career until he went to the Wizards. He came back with the Wizards. But if you ask me, I don't like the Golden State Warriors because of their attitude. I mean, this is like WWF back in the old days when they had the Attitude Era, and that's these four lunkheads, mostly three lunkheads. It's two lunkheads, a third who's turning into a lunkhead, and a fourth who's kind of a low-key lunkhead, because they're just kind of talking crap about everybody all the time, and I'm not really okay with that because they're winning. If they were losers, I'd say, good, talk shit as much as you want. Who cares? Because you should be pissed off. You lose all the time. Like, what the... Why would you get to the top of the mountaintop and then choose to piss down it? Like, that's the part that I don't understand. You're at the top. Just savor it. Let them talk their shit. Let them say, who cares? Like, I'm not saying some of the stuff... No, don't get me wrong. Some of the stuff that people say to those guys is absolutely appalling and disgusting. And, like, the brawl at the Palace Auburn Hills, I didn't really feel bad for that guy that got punched. Well, I felt bad for the guy who got punched because it was the wrong guy. But the guy who should have got punched, like, if he would have gotten his ass beaten from here to Kingdom Come, like, I wouldn't have blamed him. Now, granted, Ron Artest was acting a little wacko, but he had no right to do what he did. None whatsoever. And some of that stuff that they say to people, and the taping that they do, and the invasion of these guys is one thing. But when you're sitting with the media and you're not in a combative situation with somebody, now granted, they feel they have to combat the media because the media craps on us all the time, which is a self-driven narrative that they have in their locker room or in their heads. There's no reason for them to shit on everything. There just really isn't, because you have to understand that at a certain point, you're at the top, man. You won the last two. You won 3 out of the last 4. Just shut up and be happy about it. You know, they're never going to give me Defensive Player of the Year. They're never going to give me anything. It's like, what do you want? You know, do you want blowjobs everywhere you go? I mean, is that the thing that you need to prove that you're such an awesome... I mean, what is this? What are you looking for? These people that have to have constant affirmation from everybody outside of themselves, they drive me insane, because he's one of the better basketball players in the NBA. He won the last 2 championships in a row, and he still wants more. Now, granted, that makes you a great professional athlete. I mean, you know, you have to have that drive, but at a certain point, you don't have to be a negative dick about it. All I'm asking for is the old Kevin Durant to come back. The guy who was on the commercial as the too nice guy. And I think that commercial was a mistake, because ever since that commercial, he's been a prick. And they're like, oh, he's too nice. And he's like, I'm not nice. Screw you. You know, and so then he's got to put it in overdrive to try to show, I'm not a nice guy. I'm a dick, you know. I don't know. He bothers me because his like when I talked about John Gruden last week, and he got on TV, and all of the bad parts of his personality, you know, the bombastic, arrogant, overly opinionated, just talking to hear yourself talk parts of John Gruden seem to just metastasize throughout his whole body and eliminate any kind of, you know, any kind of self-awareness whatsoever. And I don't know if Kevin Durant has self-awareness. I don't really know. But ever since he went to Golden State, and the last couple of years, ever since he did that commercial, it seems like all of that self-awareness, any that he had, is gone. And he's just, I'm Captain Dick now. Like Captain Underpants, but just Captain Dick. And it's not okay with me. Like, it's just not okay with me. I think he could be better than that, and that whole team, that team as a whole. Now, not everybody on the team, but the big guys on that team, you know, could stop pissing down the mountainside and just, you know, zip it up and just taking the view for a little while. You know, just be decent. You don't shit on everything all the time. Like, all they talk about is negative stuff and complain about the media. Just stop. They want you to complain about them. They want you to tell them they suck, because then they can say you suck. And you just perpetuate the cycle. If they say you suck and you don't talk to them, they have nothing to talk about. You guys cease to be a story. I wouldn't be talking about it. You know what I'm saying? But they keep putting negative shit out there, and then that garners negative shit in response. What you put out is what you get back. What you put out is what you get back. They should, like, use that as a mantra in their head. So I'm going to go from talking about Kevin Durant and the Golden State Warriors shitting on everything, and I'm really going to shit on something. I go to a gym. It's an Anytime Fitness. It's not a big building. It's a pretty small one. I don't live in any, I don't live near any big towns. And the gym that I go to is probably the size of a ranch house, maybe a little bit smaller. The building, you can probably walk from one end of it to the other. I don't know, probably in a minute. Not even, not a minute, 30 seconds. I don't even know. It's a small building is what I'm trying to get across to you. Like, the weight section is real close to where all the running machines are. There's like weight machines in between, and then there's like the free weights over in there, and then there's a little room for like yoga. There was a boxing thing there, which is broken now, so who knows how long that's going to stay there. But the point being is that I go there on a fairly regular basis. I try to work out about 4 times a week, and currently my schedule has changed, so I have to go during the nighttime. And granted, I've experienced this in the daytime, in the afternoon, at night. Whenever I go, I have had this experience. What the fuck is with people going to the gym and talking? Like, what the fuck? Like, I have my headphones in. I have my headphones in on the treadmill. I'm going 7.5, between 6.5 and 7 miles an hour on incline. I have my music up fairly loud, like it's 1 or 2 clicks away from the very top, and I can hear you, and you're not next to me. Like, they're not on the treadmill next to me or on the ellipticals like 4 feet behind me. They're in the weight section, which is like 30 feet away, and they're talking so loudly that I can hear them like they're standing next to me. And I can't really always make out their conversation, but when you hear ba-na-da-ba-na-na, and you hear as you're running, and then all of a sudden you hear, I mean, what the I'm trying to run. You're distracting me. Shut the hell up. And it's like you look over and they're still talking. Or these people who go on their fucking phone as they're walking or doing the elliptical or something. It's like, turn your fucking phone off. Turn your phone off. Do you really think I give a shit about your conversation? Do you think that anybody cares about that? No one does. It's just the amount of disrespect. Go outside. If you need to take a phone call, there's 2 bathrooms. Go in the bathroom for 10 minutes. Talk on the damn phone in the bathroom. Don't sit there, and they're not even working out. Like, some of them continue to work out, but most of them stop. They stop because you can't really talk on the phone and work out. It's not like they're talking on like the microphones on their earpieces. No, they stop working out, they pick up the phone, they answer the phone, they put it on fucking speakerphone, and then they yell into it while they're, if they continue to walk. If they're on the treadmill, I've seen a woman do that. She yelled on the treadmill, right? And there was enough people that I had to go like one away from her, and she's like 1 treadmill away from me and just yelling into her phone like that, and I can hear her. And I'm like, you have to be kidding me. Who wants to listen to you talk on the damn phone? And what night was that? I think it was Thursday night last week, or Saturday night last week. No, it was Thursday night last week. I'm sitting there, and there's 3 windows on the one wall, and there's 2 windows on the other, and I was doing deadlift, and there was this guy who came around the corner. He came into the building. There's a little cubby thing. He sits down, he puts his shit away, and he walks over. He does a little stretching or whatever, and then something happens, and he answers his phone. This dickhead walked back and forth in that probably 15-foot area about 450,000 fucking times on his goddamn phone. Didn't do one lift, didn't do anything. He just sat there and talked on his phone. And I thought, okay, he's a guy. It's 6 o'clock, business is just over. Maybe it's a late phone call, so I don't have my headphones off yet. I keep my music going, but I can still hear. It sounds like Charlie Brown's parents just showed up, his dad did. And I'm lifting. I have my headphones in. I shouldn't be able to hear these people, but they're so loud and disrespectful that I can hear it through that. So I think I'm like, calm down. Maybe he's on an important call. Give him a break. So after about 5 minutes, I'm like, okay, I'm done with this shit. I don't care if it's an important call. By now, you should have had it figured out. So I pause it. And I don't know what the hell this guy was talking about, but he's like, oh yeah, we went here. Yeah, it was fun. Oh no, it wasn't that expensive. And I'm like, you can't have this conversation later. Like, why come to the gym and talk on the phone? That's almost as bad as these people who come to the gym and they use it as social hour. Like, I don't know about everybody else, but, you know, I use the gym to exercise. That is the reason I'm there. I am not there for any other purpose. I drive there, I get out of my car, I get my stuff, put it in the cubbyhole, and it's time to work out now. I don't have Facebook on that phone. I don't have any kind of, you know, interrupting apps. I don't have anything. Nothing. So my sole focus, I don't even take my cell phone, like my actual cell phone, because I have a phone that's specifically for my music, because I use the mini SD cards, and I put that big one in there so my phone can still be used for a phone. And I use my other, I use a phone for, because I used to have an iPod, but it broke. So this was my cheapest alternative as to replace it. Because I used my actual cell phone once before, and I used it too much, and I burnt out my phone, and I learned my lesson after that. I didn't do that again. So I bought an entirely separate phone that's simply for music. That's all I use it for. And I put my music on there, and like, I put my earbuds in, and that's it. I'm ready to go. Let's go. It's time to work out, you know. And I'm not trying to be an ass, but like, I don't go there to screw around. Like, I'm there. I remember when I was in high school, it's probably where I learned this from. I had weightlifting class, and we had this meathead for a gym teacher. He was also the football coach. And I had friends who thought, oh yeah, we'll take the class with you. It'll be fun, you know, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay. And that meathead gym teacher was serious about weightlifting and stuff like that. Like, you didn't come in there to fuck around. Like, if you fucked around, he was pissed. Like, he'd get pissed off. I learned that lesson quick. And I was never one to screw around when I was up there anyway. Like, it was serious business up there. You know, you can hurt yourself. You got to pay attention. If you're working hard, you don't really have time to screw around. You know, you don't have time to talk. You're out of breath. You're sweating. You got to keep pushing, you know. And I'm not saying that's the right thing for everybody, but that's how I feel about it. And so my friends decided to take this class with me, and I'm sitting there and we're doing bench press. And I'm doing what I'm supposed to, but these two idiots, they like to spin the weight on the bar, and they thought it was the funniest fucking thing. It made a shitload of noise, and it spun like that, and they were having like a half-ass contest about who could do it better. And I'm looking in the office, and his office was like 5 feet away from the bench where we were, and he's sitting on that chair, and he just keeps looking out, and I can see the color in his face is getting redder and redder by the moment. And one of our school colors was red, and he was wearing a red shirt, and that pretty soon his face was the same color, and I was like, oh fuck, here he comes. And he got out of the chair, and he came over, and I was going to go do something else, and like, I was my last rep, and he's like, okay, you two come over here. And those were my two friends that were screwing around, and he put that, I mean, he's like, you guys are going to work out with me now. And they bitched about that for like 2 weeks afterwards. I mean, they couldn't walk. He kicked the shit out of them, and they were bitching at me, and they're like, why the fuck didn't you have to do that, blah blah blah. And I'm like, I know what was going to happen. I told you to stop screwing around. You assholes never listened to me. So that's what happens. He came and kicked the shit out of you. If you would have stopped screwing around like I told you to, you'd have been fine. But no. And so that is the attitude I grew up with as far as like working out and a gym and that kind of stuff. Like, it's serious business. You don't screw around. And so I go to this gym, and these people are constantly talking. There's this one guy, he's bald, he's probably about 5'3". He's always got stupid shoes on, and he never stops talking. I see him do more stretching and talking than I do working out. Like, I don't ever see him in the cardio area. He does massive amounts of like leg stuff is all I've ever seen him do. And he just talks to everybody. And he's like, oh yeah, I get it. You want to be sociable, whatever. But if you're talking loud enough that I can hear it through my headphones, I think you need to bring the volume down. Like, that's just like, this whole rant is about gym etiquette. And as far as I'm concerned, the etiquette is be quiet. If you want to have a conversation, have it at this level, you know. Hey, how you doing? Oh, okay. You know, you don't have to necessarily whisper, but if you're talking to somebody or whatever, you don't have to shout at the top of your lungs so somebody halfway across the building can hear you. You know what I mean? Like they're standing right next to them and they hear, if I pause my headphones, I can hear him while I'm running on the treadmill, like he's standing next to me. I hear the conversation. And it's not just him, it's other people there too. Now, he's usually the catalyst as far as I can tell because he's always yapping at people. So I think it's him, but I don't know. And I don't understand. And the people on the phone, like there's these women in there that they're definitely in need of exercise. And they kind of maybe walked at 1.5 miles an hour. I mean, they weren't going very fast. And they were there probably as long as I was on the treadmill. And they left. Now, it was one of my light days for running because my legs were pretty fucked up. And I only did 20, 25 minutes. And I ran. Like, I don't screw around. I run, but, I don't run that long. And sometimes I run lower speeds at longer time frames and stuff like that. But I always go and do weights or I box afterwards. And these women were there for 20 minutes, maybe. And they talked the entire time, walking 1.5 miles. And, they weren't, like, superiorly out of shape. But they certainly could have done with a little more focus. Let's put it that way. And they're screwing around and screwing around and screwing around. And it's like, stop screwing. You wonder why people are, you wonder why people come to the gym and screw around. Especially the people that obviously need the gym. Like, I'm not saying anything. I was a fat guy at one time. I lost a bunch of weight. I get it. It's a difficult process. But if you're not serious about it, you're never going to lose any weight. Ever. And then why come to the gym? If you come to the gym to talk, go somewhere else. Literally, my gym is right next to a bar. You want to go talk? There's a place literally like 30 feet away from the building. Go over there. You can have a nice cold beverage, some chips, watch some TV, and bullshit till your heart's content. But as far as I'm concerned, don't come in the gym and talk loud enough and distract other people and just be discourteous. I mean, it's just discourteous. I don't go in there, and I mean, I don't know, what the hell I could do, run around and scream or holler. Like, I used to be a hell of a lot louder in high school when I lifted. Like, I was grunting as loud as possible, and people used to be like, what the fuck's wrong with you? But, my gym teacher guy that I was talking about, that's what he did. So these are the kind of things I learned from him. And I don't really like that guy, but he knew what he was doing in the gym. I mean, that guy, he was in pretty damn good shape. So he knew what he was doing. And so I kind of took some of those things. I don't do those things anymore. Like, I don't, as loud as I can anymore. I try to keep it within myself, and these people they don't give a shit about anybody else. And that really bothers me. And that's something that's indicative of a much larger problem going on. But it's so annoying every time I go there. Like, I can't run, I have to focus. I hate going to the gym. I really hate it. Like, it's not my favorite thing. I know I have to do it for my own well-being. I've got some history of heart disease in my family and stuff like that. So I got to watch myself, I got to take care of myself. But I don't have to like it, and a lot of the things I do, I don't have to like. But I just think, the least you could do is be courteous to the other people that you're spending time, that you're spending this time with, because you're inhabiting the same space. It's like living with somebody. Now, granted, it may only be for an hour or 45 minutes or however how long you're within each other's cohabitation, but you still have to be respectful. I paid you money just like you did. It doesn't mean that you run the place. Now, maybe that guy owns the place. I don't really know who owns the place. I think it's some old people, but I don't really know. The point is that is a larger problem in this country, is the disrespect that goes on a consistent basis. And I don't know, it just really bothers me. And I hope that any of you who listen, if you go to the gym, that you're more respectful than that. I hope if your phone rings, you take it outside, or you go in the bathroom, or you go somewhere away from where people are, and you try to talk as quietly as possible. I don't think that's too much to ask. I mean, you can leave your water on the machine. You can, leave your machine, because they don't work out. They don't move. And when you don't move on those machines, they're Precor machines, they quit. You can pause your treadmill for 2 minutes. After 2 minutes, your workout data goes away because they think you're done, They got a stair stepper there that if you don't step on it within like 15 seconds, it's done. So to me, like I said, I just hope that you guys, that listen, if you do go to the gym, you're not one of these people. I'm not saying you're bad people, but I'm just saying you have an opportunity to be better. Just if you're on your phone, don't talk next to people. Don't talk loud. If you have to talk to, go somewhere. There's private rooms in a lot of gyms. There's bathrooms. You can even go outside if it's desperate. If you feel like you want to be sociable in the gym, that's great. But you don't have to talk real loud. You can talk in a normal voice. If they have their headphones in, you can ask them to take them out. But there's another thing. Maybe if they have their headphones in, they don't want to speak to you. Maybe they're working out. Because I have that problem too, where people try to talk to me and I have my headphones in and I wear glasses and I'm legitimately almost blind. Like, I know what the blurry shapes are in my view because I remember them from memory. But if you take me to like a brand new place and you shove, and you take a blindfold off of me and I've never been there before and you take my glasses away, I'll figure it out. But I'm not going to know what those blurry shapes are. You know what I mean? So I'm going to be awful careful. And this is what I'm saying. When I go to the gym and take my glasses off and I put my headphones in and I try to block everything out, and then these people are trying to interact with me, and it's like, this is not the time. This is not the time nor the place. And I'm not discourteous. I mean, I don't want to be rude, but I can't. Half the time I can't see you or I can't hear you. And the people that do talk to me when I'm there, there's an older couple that talks to me, and there was another older guy who talked to me. But they're older, so I think they know to speak louder. I don't really know, but they talk loud enough that I can hear them. I can actually hear that and they make like hand movements and stuff. And so they want your attention. They know how to get it. I think younger people are more bashful in that sense, and that's harder for me to pick up on. But I just hope if you go to the gym that you practice good etiquette, and if you disagree with me, hey, send me an email. I'll give the email out at the end of the episode. And if you feel differently about it, don't just send me an email. Oh, I do whatever I want at the gym. Fuck you. Don't send me something like that. But if you have something to say where you're like, I like to go to the gym and this and that and the other thing, you're probably not going to change my mind, but you'll give me a different perspective, and that I'll always appreciate. So we go from my crushing disappointment with gym etiquette to what might possibly be Dabo Swinney's crushing disappointment. For those of you who don't know the name, Dabo Swinney is the coach of the Clemson Tigers. They're a football team in the ACC, and they had Deshaun Watson on it when they won. I think he won the national championship, or was that Kelly Bryant? I don't remember. But anyway, Deshaun Watson was the starting quarterback for a few years. He graduated, and then Kelly Bryant started. Kelly Bryant started the last 2 years. He went 17-1 as a starter. Now, in the incoming year, they got the number 1 overall quarterback. I think he was the number 1 overall guy in the country. His name's Trevor Lawrence. He's got long, flowing hair. He's a pretty good quarterback, fairly mobile, got a good arm, all this stuff. But he's a true freshman. And Kelly Bryant is a senior, I'm pretty sure, because I think he graduates after this year, so he was probably going in the draft regardless. And they decided that they were going to play them together. And then they were going to decide, because now the NCAA has this new rule where you can play guys up to 4 games and still redshirt them. And they decided that they were going to play both of them, and whoever won the battle was going to be the starting quarterback. And they decided that after 3 games that Trevor Lawrence won. They didn't play Kelly Bryant, and he decided, you know what, this is bullshit, I'm going to transfer. And Dabo Swinney came out, he said he was sorry about it, and blah, 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 and, he wished Kelly would stay on the team, and he told him he'd have a role and all this stuff, and Kelly's like, no, I don't want to stay there. And you can't blame the kid. I mean, he lost 1 game in 2 years. You're going to tell me that in some way, shape, or form, you're going to sell me on the idea of I didn't do my job, so I should not keep my job? Doesn't seem rational to me. But so he moves on. He's no longer on the team. And this last Saturday, they played, oh Christ, who did they play? Syracuse. That's who they played. And I went to the gym and I watched the highlights at the gym. And one of the plays, Trevor Lawrence rolled out to his left, and he was going out of bounds. And a Syracuse guy came over and hit him, but he cracked him in the side of the head, gave him a concussion, I'm assuming, and he was out of the game. So ostensibly in that game, they played their 4th string quarterback, because what had happened at the beginning of the year, Before the Trevor Lawrence, Kelly Bryant thing played out, there was a guy named Hunter Johnson who was a really highly rated quarterback the year he came out, and he transferred. Now, he would have been their third string quarterback is my guess, and this Chase Bryce probably is the fourth, would have been the fourth string quarterback had they had the depth chart from the beginning of the year until the end. And from the beginning of the season, from like spring practice onwards. But once it became clear that Hunter Johnson didn't have a place on the team, he left. So Kelly Bryant is no longer there, so they have to play this Chase Bryce. And they still won the game, but it was a lot closer than it could have been. And, I feel bad for Trevor Lawrence because in this situation, for me, the irritation isn't with Trevor Lawrence. It is a little bit because these freshmen are coming in and to get them to come to your program, you have to guarantee them a starting job, essentially. Which is bullshit because that Tua that plays for Alabama that replaced Jalen Hurts, who only lost 2 games over 3 years or whatever, he was going to transfer if he didn't play in the championship game. Now, granted, he looks like a much better quarterback than Jalen Hurts, but the fact that these guys are true freshmen and they expect to play is kind of ridiculous. I mean, these guys used to get redshirted all the time. They had no voice whatsoever. And these coaches are now kind of at their whims, which is a good change, but also a bad change because you're getting guys like Kelly Bryant who haven't done anything wrong, and they're getting their draft stock torpedoed. I mean, torpedoed, because now he and Jalen Hurts. Now, Jalen Hurts is staying in school, and they're still playing him. I think they played him this last game with Tua too. But if they decide to transfer, they're going to have to go to an entirely new system, pick that up over a year, and then try to win football games and prove that, yeah, I can do this. Whereas they've been in the same system for 4 years or 3 years, they know what they're doing in that system. They're going to look their best. I just think it's unfair. But I think the decision that Dabo Swinney made was bullshit. I really do. Because had he chosen to stay with Kelly Bryant, maybe they were destined to get their quarterback messed up in this game. Against Syracuse, the Clemson quarterback was going down. Maybe that was predetermined. Now, whether you believe in that or not, but let's just say that's the possibility, okay? Now look at it this way. You have Kelly Bryant as a starter. He goes down. Trevor Lawrence starts. Trevor Lawrence plays well. Trevor Lawrence kicks the shit out of Syracuse. He's got a concussion, so we probably should hold him on another week. They play another team. He does well again. So then Kelly Bryant starts to come back, but yeah, you look at him and, he played, so he doesn't have the red shirt. And then, the kids looked pretty good, and you've been out, and, and who knows, with these concussion things, you can hold guys out for 3-4 weeks. So he plays 3 or 4 games. He lights up the scoreboard. He's got umpteen million yards, a bunch of touchdowns, because Clemson's a damn good team. They're winning 55-0, and so Trevor Lawrence starts, and what the hell can Kelly Bryant say? And it doesn't really hurt his draft stock because you still have the film from before. And they look at that and they go, okay, well, he had an injury, but he's coming out. Now, he's probably not going to get as much run as he should. If, say, he was a... If he was if he was the first team All-American and all that other stuff, he'd have a better shot at being a first round number 1 overall draft pick. But if you ask me, there is something to be said for the fact that he could have made a different decision. And had he made that decision, there's a possibility that they could have gotten Trevor Lawrence in anyway. And then he could have started the rest of the games. But now they're stuck with ostensibly their 4th string quarterback. How successful is that going to be for him? And the kid looked okay, but he was playing Syracuse, and they almost lost that game. Now, in crunch time, he did okay. I mean, I was surprised, and they interviewed him afterwards and all that other stuff. But there's something to be said for, I think it's a shitty situation for Kelly Bryant, and I think it's karma. Really, I honestly do. Like, if that would have happened to anybody else, I would have been surprised. But because it happened to Clemson on that day, and that was the day that they decided, hey, this kid's done. We're done with him, and we're not going to play this game anymore, and we're going to play you instead, and this and that and the other thing. It's just too perfect, and I feel bad for Trevor Lawrence because he didn't do anything wrong. A little bit because he, was he decided he should he decided that he should be the starter, and to get him on the roster, we have to start him. I don't necessarily agree with that, and the fact that Dabo Swinney folded to it and screwed over Kelly Bryant in the process, I think it's fair that happened. I don't think it's fair to Trevor Lawrence exactly, but you couldn't see you couldn't see it happening any other way, is my guess. But I still feel bad for Kelly Bryant. I really do. And I don't like what happens in college football. I don't like how the guys are treated. I don't like how some of them... And granted, it's a crapshoot. I mean, when you draft guys out of college, it's a crapshoot. But the guy didn't do anything wrong. He was 17-1. Now, granted, Clemson's really good, but he didn't screw it up. There were no games that they lost that everybody went, okay, it was Kelly Bryant's fault. Like, Miami just changed their quarterback. They went from Malik Rozier to Nkosi Perry. They decided that Rozier couldn't do it anymore. He stinks, they think. So they went to the new guy, who they think is better, and supposedly is. Okay, that makes sense. But Kelly Bryant didn't do anything wrong. They lost one game. Rozier lost big games. He didn't do what he was supposed to do. And I say Rozier, it's Malik Rozier, that most people think, but there was some reporting from Miami, from his dad, actually, that their last name is Rozier, but you can say either. I just say Rozier because if that's what the family says, then that's what I'm going to go with. But for me, I just think college, there's certain things that go on there for college football that just boggle my mind as to why. And it couldn't have been a more perfect way that it worked out. It sucks for the kid because he didn't do anything wrong. But, if they would have just done it, if they would have just kept Kelly Bryant and stuck with him and told that kid, hey, you'll be the starter next year. He's graduating anyway. I don't understand. How did he have any leverage? He can't transfer. And if he does transfer, then let him transfer. Because you can say to him, you have the reins next year. We will give it to you. There's no one else. But no, they didn't do that. They bent to his will, which, to me, if you ask me, it's a bad move. It's a bad move. It's setting a bad precedent for everybody else, You can't do stuff like that. And I don't know. I think it was a mistake. A large mistake, but a mistake nonetheless. And I don't want to see this continue. I really don't, because this is like the second time this has happened. First it was Jalen Hurts, now it's Kelly Bryant. And these freshmen are throwing their weight around. And you know what? Let them leave. Let them leave. Especially Alabama. Like, granted, he's probably the best quarterback that they had, but still, they could do better. Maybe. Who knows? I don't know. He's a really good quarterback. I don't think the Tua thing is as bad, because they were losing the national championship game and he won it. So and he's a sophomore, So he has some, I won the national championship game for you, I think I should. And he's played well, but they play both of them, And now, Jalen Hurts took it better. But Kelly Bryant didn't do anything wrong. Like, he didn't lose any game. Nothing happened where they brought in Trevor Lawrence and Kelly Bryant looked inept and Trevor Lawrence did better than Kelly Bryant did. There's no question in my mind that happened. So, I just think, I feel bad for Kelly Bryant. I really do. I put myself in that situation and I would have done the exact same thing. I'd have left. And I don't even know if I'd play football anymore. Like, I'd be so disillusioned with the idea. And this is one of the reasons that I called my podcast what I did, because I've had a lot of those situations happen in my life with a lot of institutions where I put my faith and my trust and my credit. I believe in the credibility of these people and these institutions and stuff like that. And they let me down every time. I mean, it's all BS. And granted, maybe some of you haven't experienced that and you don't feel that, but that's one of the reasons that I feel like, Misanthrope, is a good, descriptor for me. I mean, I don't really like people because of that reason. And if I was Kelly Bryant, like, that kind of shit would have fucked me up to the point where I wouldn't have played football. I mean, basically is what happened to me in football. Like, I tried playing football, and that meathead guy that I was talking about in the weight room told me, like, I didn't want to play offensive line. I was a fat kid, but I don't want to play offensive line. You don't get the ball. You don't get to do anything. I liked playing defense, but he wanted me to play defensive line, and then he wanted to play 3-4, where basically the explanation of the offense was, okay, you three on the line, hold all five of these guys, and we'll let the linebackers go and make the plays. And I used to get in trouble. Like, we'd do drills, and I'd beat the offensive linemen off the blocks and get to the quarterback. Now, granted, they were fast, and that was because I was a fat kid, but I'd be back in the backfield and they'd be like, what are you doing? You're supposed to hold that guy. And blah. And it was like, what is this bullshit? But that goes back to, and so that's jumping ahead a little bit. When I first started in the beginning of my junior year, I said to him, because I had to get good grades, I had to do all this stuff, and so my senior year I was going to play football, and I said to him, okay, what can I do to prevent myself from being on the offensive and defensive lines? I said, I will do whatever you ask. He said, my coach said, you have to lose X amount of weight, you have to work out every day, you got to show up for everything, and then we'll go. So I did. I worked out 3-4 times a day. Now, granted, my eating habits were pretty poor. I mean, they weren't good. I mainlined Mountain Dew. I mean, I was a bad kid at that. But I worked out like a demon. I was up there 3 times a day. I mean, it was constant. Like there was no off switch, and I did everything that I thought I could do, and at the end of the day, he said to me, oh, well, we go to camp. We went to Ripon, Wisconsin. We went to the college for camp. And the guy says to me, well, we'll put you at guard. And I cannot tell you how much that fucked me up. Like, I just can't explain it. And right there, that was another, and I quit. I was done. I asked him for some plays because I wanted to learn the playbook. They yelled at me. I don't give my plays to anybody. And that was it. I was just, after camp, I was done. I never went back. I tried to go back in the middle of this, like, first 2 games of the season because I was like, wow, I said I would play and stuff. And he wanted me to do something, and then he didn't explain it very well, and I left, and I should have stayed. And he's like, I told you to wait. And I'm like, I waited for 35 minutes. How long am I supposed to wait? He's like, you're just not blah, blah, blah. And he was like, it was up to the team and what, I don't remember. And then another kid tried to join midway of the season, and he bitched at me because I tried it and wouldn't do it. Then he wouldn't let that kid play because it wouldn't, because he figured I would cause trouble, which I didn't give a shit. By that time, I was done, and it messed me up for a couple of years. I won't lie. When you're a younger kid, that kind of stuff, sticks with you. And he's still a young man. I mean, he's not old. He's still in college. He's only a senior, probably. He might be 5 years into college, but what does that make him, 22? I mean, you got to think about this stuff. And, I feel bad for him. I really do. Because I can kind of, relate to it. It's not, it's not near as much as what he's going through, because he's a professional athlete, or he's trying to be a professional athlete and all this other stuff, and I was just some fat guy who couldn't play fullback or whatever it is that I wanted to play. So I don't know, I just wish it would have been different for the kid. I wish Kelly Bryant would have gotten a better shake and had, Trevor Lawrence, and then if he'd have gotten hurt, then Trevor Lawrence could have played. But I don't know. Yeah, this week was a little more depressing than last week. I wasn't as upbeat because there was a lot of stuff that just kind of, and the Bill Cosby thing kind of threw me off all week. And then that thing happened with Kelly Bryant. And like I said, I felt bad for the kid. So, I think that's it for this week. I'm trying to currently find what my email address is here. I'll go to Twitter. I'll give you my Twitter if you want to tweet at me, or just tweet in general. It's Enlightened Misanthrope at Misanthropic, capital MISANTHROPIC 89. You can follow me there. I will be posting certain things, and you can have some updates if you like. If I look at my profile, I should be able to find the email address. My SoundCloud is on there too. We are on YouTube. We're currently not on iTunes, like I said, because we're having issues with trying to find a pod hosting site. The email is enlightenedmisanthrope@hotmail.com. It's all lowercase, ENLIGHTMISANTHROPE at, and then HOTMAIL.com. I also have Instagram, and you can probably find that too. I think that's Enlightened Misanthrope on there. Like I said to you last week, I got all the social media stuff. If there's something that I'm lacking and people think that I should be paying attention to, you can let me know. So I think that's it for this week. And I hope you guys enjoyed episode 1. I hope you enjoy episode 2. And I hope more of you listen. You can listen back. You know, if I spoke too fast for the email and stuff, you can listen to it a couple of times. I hope I enunciated it very well. But if you find my Twitter and I didn't do very well with the email and you'd like to email me or, you know, whatever, you can send me a message and I'll be sure to include it in episode 3 and I'll enunciate more clearly. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have a good week and we'll talk to you next time.